Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a horror movie review and I'll be having a look at Haunting of Winchester House. Now this movie is actually made by Asylum Pictures, which normally make these little mockbuster films, but this one is kind of an original story. Now the Winchester House is actually a real property that is actually meant to be haunted in real life, although this story is just a work of fiction based on the actual property. Now the legend of Winchester House basically is sort of said to have all these kind of ghosts that have been killed by Winchester rifles, have kind of haunted this house, and the original owner, I think it's Sarah Winchester, basically to try and appease the ghosts, kept on trying to kind of build extensions and kind of different things to the house to kind of confuse them and kind of appease them somewhat. So that's the actual sort of story, but the actual plot of this movie is essentially you've got a small family, a couple and their kind of youngest daughter, sort of move into this kind of this house, and I think they're only moving into a part of the house, but it's not really clear. But not long after they get there, of course, they sort of see strange things. They're approached by a kind of neighbour who is just happens to be a paranormal investigator, and not long after, their kind of daughter is sort of kidnapped by some kind of spirit, and they're essentially trying to find the daughter whilst trying to avoid a variety of sort of ghostly apparitions. And there's lots of ghosts in this movie, it's not just kind of the one ghost. So that's kind of the basic premise. So what's the film actually like? Well, this movie is directed by Maude Atkins, and he's actually one of these sort of very sort of prolific directors that seem to work near enough exclusively for Asylum, and knocks out a load of these kind of low budget movies. And for the most part, I have to say, I've never been a huge fan of the guy. His work is always subpar, even for kind of low budget B movies. Now, with this movie, because it's, I guess, not a mockbuster, there are some reasonable things to this. There's a couple of decent sort of makeup effects on the kind of some of the ghosts, and there's actually one quite sort of spooky scene where the wife sort of wakes up and she kind of thinks she sees like a kind of ghostly baby kind of walking sort of across the floor, and it's only sort of shot very quickly, so you don't see a lot of it. It's kind of in shadow. And that scene was actually quite good, although if you kind of look at it too much, the baby's obviously some kind of just remote control, mechanical little toddler thing. But anyway, it kind of makes for not a bad shot. But to be fair, this is a very, very low budget film. The acting in this film is atrocious. The main sort of three characters, the husband, the wife and the young daughter, are all very, very bad, especially the kind of couple themselves. The line delivery is absolutely terrible. And it's actually very almost cringeworthy when you're kind of watching these people act. Doesn't help the script, obviously, very kind of poorly written and kind of just sort of rushed through anyway. The other thing you're going to notice here is the effects are very, very cheap. Now, it very much takes you out of the film when you kind of see it looks very obviously on green screen, and you kind of notice the house when they sort of first approach it kind of looks CGI. But the weird thing is here, is that a lot of sort of interior shots are actually shot on green screen. You can kind of see the outline of the actors sort of against the background, but they're just shots of inside a house. So I don't know why they were shot on a green screen and not on location. There are some shots that are shot on location, but a lot of it is shot on green screen, and it just looks so jarring. So it's a very sort of strange decision to make that. And there's nothing sort of special going on in the background either. It is just a house. Can't understand that decision. It looks really weird, and it kind of takes you out and sort of cuts the attention. The actual action, I have to say, rattles on pretty quickly. So it's not a film that kind of keeps you sort of hanging on for ages and ages for something to actually happen. It does actually keep going pretty quickly, and there are a lot of ghosts in it. So you're kind of getting a lot of ghosts for your money, so to speak. But you kind of the overall feeling is very sort of cheap and rushed. You know, the music is kind of your stereotypical kind of haunted house music, if that makes sense. It's kind of not all that inspiring, and sometimes comes across as a little sort of like, you know, fun house type sort of music. But I have to say, overall, it was a little bit of a probably below. There are some redeeming features in this movie. It's not a complete write-off, and for a Maude Atkins film, I actually say it's probably one of his better ones, believe it or not. But overall, I think it's, you know, if you've seen a lot of these kind of haunted house films, this one's going to be pretty unmemorable. Some of the makeup effects, I say, were pretty decent. There's a lot of the ones where they're kind of shot by Winchester rifles. Obviously, they have sort of, you know, half their face blown off, which you kind of see in sort of shadow, so it looks kind of quite cool. So I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 10. See if you're just a haunted house enthusiast, I guess, but otherwise, there's a lot better films. What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.